Let it go, 7 bone-chilling truths only the strong will face, transform your pain now. The town of Crescent Hollow was buzzing, frenetic energy crackling in the air like static electricity before a storm. It was as if everyone sensed it, an unspoken dread hovering just out of reach. Shadows had started moving against the light, whispering secrets that meant to be buried. People were disappearing. The eerie, disorienting whispers twisted through the streets, tugging at the hearts of every resident. Mothers kept their children close, while fathers scoured the nights, their eyes wide and searching. Something was coming, something sinister. The first strange element was always the same, a piercing scream that shattered the night's stillness, echoing from the woods. It resonated like a death knell, powerful enough to tear through the thick silence. It was a sound that would haunt the dreams of all who heard it, a blend of pain and despair, like a wounded animal begging for mercy. Locals would whisper about the chilling truth. It was the cry of the forgotten, they said, a haunting warning from those who had vanished into the dark. Days turned into a blur of uncertainty as Crescent Hollow became a ghost town. Faces turned pale, whispers became urgent, and the air thickened with a heavy sense of fear. Each night, the townsfolk could hear the rustling leaves as if something, or someone, was brushing against them, standing just beyond the safety of their lit windows. Kids who once played freely now kept to their homes, glancing over their shoulders, their laughter replaced by shivers. The old butcher, once a jovial man, stared blankly into the distance, his hands trembling as he chopped meat for his customers. His wife had vanished last summer, and he swore he could still feel her presence, lurking behind him like a shadow. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Then, just when you thought it couldn't get worse, the discovery of a single shoe on the town's outskirts sent chills down spine. Small, pink, and dirt-stained. It belonged to a little girl named Annie, who'd gone missing weeks before. A lump formed in the throat of anyone who laid eyes on it. It was the symbol of unanswered questions and desperation. The townsfolk gathered, their murmurs a mix of thanatos and fear, a collective understanding that they were being watched, and time was running out. The air crackled with tension, as dread coiled around them tight like a noose. In that moment, beneath the clear night sky lit by a feeble moon, the townsfolk drifted closer together, staring into the darkness, unsure of what lay ahead. Those who remained, weary but armed with a fierce determination, felt the lingering weight of secrets and lies. What would they uncover? What more did they dare to uncover? And as the clock ticked toward midnight, they knew the truth was lurking nearby, waiting just out of sight. The howling wind sliced through the air like a knife, carrying with it the distant echoes of fear and despair. A palpable tension settled over Crescent Hollow, thick enough to choke on. Faces flickered in the shadows, each person grappling with the thought of what had become of those who had vanished. Scanning the darkened streets, families huddled together, seeking solace in the collective dread that had become their new reality. That night, as the moon hung high, full, and watchful, a small group of townsfolk, steeled with purpose, gathered in the center of town. Inside the crowded diner where the scent of cold coffee lingered, whispers danced about like the flickering flames of their struggling spirits. They would no longer sit idly by, gripped by fear. The shoe, that haunting reminder of Annie, had driven them to action. Something's in those woods, David, a wiry man with eyes the color of storm clouds, said, his voice trembling with urgency. He slammed his palm against the table, the sound echoing loudly in the quiet. It's not just the woods, replied Jane, a mother of 3, her face pale but defiant. It's deeper than that. Whoever or whatever took Annie isn't just going to let us walk in there. We have to be prepared. A murmur of agreement rippled through the group, but the air thrummed with an unsaid panic, the fear of the unknown, the fear of facing whatever lurked beyond that line of trees. Each person felt the weight pressing down on them, the thick, oppressive silence of their shared anxiety. Torn between courage and fear, they stood at the brink of a decision that could alter the course of their lives forever. The night grew more restless as the group formed a plan, preparing themselves for a trek into the heart of darkness. They gathered flashlights, made sure their cell phones were charged, and brought whatever they thought might offer protection against the unseen horror. The diner's fluorescent lights flickered intermittently, casting disconcerting shadows that seemed alive. Outside, their breath curled into clouds in the frigid air. As they stood at the edge of the woods, the wind died down, and an uneasy stillness enveloped them like a thick cloak. It was as if the world held its breath, waiting. The woods loomed ahead, dark and foreboding, each tree a sentinel whispering secrets better left undisturbed. As they stepped forward, footsteps crunching on brittle leaves, a sharp cry pierced the night, a shrill, unearthly wail that sent icy fingers down their spines. It resonated from deep within the woods, a sound they all recognized as the cry of the forgotten. What was that? Emily stammered, her eyes wide with terror. "Stay close," David ordered, trying to mask his own alarm. Though his heart raced like a caged animal, he pushed through his anxiety. They had come too far to turn back now. The deeper they ventured, the closer they felt to uncovering the truth. But with each step, they were starkly reminded that truth has a way of twisting unexpectedly. The woods seemed to pulse around them, shadows darting just beyond the light of their flashlights. Eyes watched from the darkness, waiting in that dim, suffocating atmosphere. Secrets thickened like the fog. And just as they were about to cross the threshold into the heart of the forest, the unmistakable sound of a footfall broke the silence, a heavy, deliberate step that wasn't anyone in their group. Panic gripped them like a vice, and their eyes met, wide with confusion and fear. Who, or what, was with them in the shadows? As the rustling intensified, a shape moved just beyond the trees, and with it, an inexplicable sense that they weren't alone. What was lurking out there, and would they live to tell the tale? The shadows began to shift, coiling and uncoiling like a living thing. David felt the pulse of dread in his veins. "What was that?" he whispered, his breath coming in short, ragged gasps. 1,000 scenarios raced through his mind, each more horrific than the last. The group huddled into tighter formation. Jane was trembling, clutching her daughter's hand as if it were a lifeline. Her knuckles were white, the glow of the flashlights casting eerie shapes across her worried face. "We can't let fear stop us, not now," she whispered, though her voice wavered, barely rising above the rustling leaves that surrounded them. Hearts thudded in unison, an unspoken pact easy to recognize. They had come this far, and if Annie's cries echoed through the woods, they had to answer. With shaky resolve, David took the lead. Each step felt like a leap into the unknown, where shadows danced and whispered, promising no safety. The air grew thick, suffocating in its silence, but that haunting wail tugged at them, drawing them deeper into the darkness. Suddenly, the sound of branches snapping pierced through the stillness, making Emily gasp sharply. "David!" She gasped, her voice laced with panic. Their flashlights flickered, and for a heartbeat, darkness swallowed them whole. In that terrifying moment of uncertainty, David's flashlight sputtered back to life. A glimpse of something stirred between the trees beyond their feeble beams. Something hunched. Something watching. "Did you see that?" Emily cried, her face drained of color. "It must be an animal," David said, trying to sound calm, though he felt the knot growing tighter in his stomach. He took a cautious step forward, yet the earth felt uneven under his feet, like the ground itself was shifting in response to their presence. "We need to keep moving." They pressed on, each step echoing with the weight of fear. But then, as if summoned by their collective dread, a low growl reverberated through the trees, sending chills coursing down their spines. It was a sound rooted in pure malice, a warning that echoed with the terror of the empty woods. The group stopped dead in their tracks. Jane swapped glances with David, a silent question hanging in the air: should they go back? But just as that thought flickered to life, another cry rang out, closer this time, winding and eerie. It held the promise of despair, the very essence of fear. "Keep going," David urged, his voice sharper, fueled by adrenaline now. They squeezed through a narrow path, branches clawing at their clothes like angry hands. They were driven by a primal instinct survival. Then light appeared, a soft glow filtering through the dense thicket ahead. "Over there." Jane pointed, hope flaring momentarily in her eyes. The group rushed towards it, desperation propelling their pace even as that growl reverberated behind them again, louder and more insistent. When they reached the clearing, the sight before them was brutal yet mesmerizing, a circle of ancient stones, weathered and imposing. In the center lay an unsettling scene, familiar belongings, faded photographs, and scattered shoes. The scattered remnants of those whispered to be missing. Annie's shoe gleamed in the moonlight, almost like it had been placed there intentionally, waiting for their arrival. A sense of dread enveloped them, wrapping like a cold blanket around their shoulders. The answers they sought marinated in a shadowy dread, but just as panic threatened to grip them, David lifted his eyes, scanning the darkness around them. A figure stepped into the clearing, cloaked and shrouded, their face obscured by shadows. "You've come far," it rasped, its voice thick with a mix of malice and allure. The group froze, breath hitching. What had they just stumbled into? "Now, you must decide. Will you confront the secrets or let them consume you?" The figure's gaze pierced deep into David, and he shivered as a terrible understanding settled in his stomach. They had come seeking answers, but this was so much more a test they had never anticipated. A heavy silence fell upon them, each member of the group fighting against the wave of terror rolling in like a monster from the depths of their fears. Would they face what lurked in the shadows, or would they run back into the darkness? Something shifted in the air, a tension so thick it felt electric. What choice would they make and what would it cost them? The figure seemed to draw the very darkness around it, the shadows deepening in its presence. David felt the weight of the moment pressing down, as if the air itself conspired to snuff out his will. His heart pounded, quickening with each raspy breath that echoed in the haunted clearing. "Who are you?" he managed to choke out, voice barely above a whisper. The question hung between them, heavy and thick like the fog creeping low from the trees. "I am the keeper of their stories," the figure replied, draping its voice lavishly over each word. "The lost, the forgotten. Those who dared to uncover the truth and paid the price." It gestured to the items scattered within the stone circle. "These are the remnants of their choices." As if trapped in a nightmare, David found his gaze drawn to the photos strewn across the dirt. Faces stared back smiling, alive. Each picture tugged at a thread of memory, illuminating fragments of lives intertwined with Annie's. He swallowed hard, clenching his fists, fighting the rising panic. What happened to them? "Curiosity has a cost," the figure whispered, moving closer, merging with the shadows. "Just like your desire to know what happened to dear Annie." The words coiled around him, squeezing tighter. Jane stepped forward, her voice trembling yet resolute. "We're not afraid. We want answers." The air around them shivered, and the figure let out a low, eerie chuckle. "Ah, but to want is to reveal yourself. To face the darkness is to delve into oneself. Will you bleed for those you seek, or will you turn away when faced with the truth?" Tension crackled in the air. David could feel the heat of Jane's fear mixing with his own. They stood at the precipice of something vast and unfathomable, and he suddenly realized the choice wasn't just about Annie. It was about them. Their choices, their fears, and what lay buried deep within. Emily, usually so steadfast, trembled. I can't. I don't want to know what it takes to bring her back. What if she's gone forever? Then it is already too late," the figure cawed, its hood obscuring any hint of a face. "What is lost can be reclaimed, but the cost." It trailed off, letting the unspoken words resonate. "Enough of this," David shouted, panic sparking a fire within. "Tell us how. We need to find her." The figure tilted its head, and a part of him felt it cackle from within the depths of its shrouded form as if his terror was a source of amusement. Very well. Embrace the truth standing before you, and it may set you free. But know this, not all truths lead to salvation. With a wave of its hand, the items on the ground began to shift, swirling like leaves caught in a storm. Unearthly whispers filled the air, intertwining with the murmurs of the forest, painting shadows that morphed into desperate faces. Suddenly, a piercing scream erupted from the woods, echoing hauntingly like a twisted melody. It paralyzed them, rooted to the spot as anguish clawed at their insides. It was Annie's voice, a crystal-clear cry that shattered the silence of night. Annie! David lunged instinctively, but the cloaked figure raised its hand, stopping him. If you want her back, a sacrifice must be made in exchange of souls. It leaned closer, the weight of its presence crushing. Are you willing to pay the price? In that moment, everything hung in balance. David's mind raced, a torrent of thoughts crashing together like waves in a storm. He had sacrificed so much already, could he go further? And then, without warning, darkness surged from the woods, rushing toward them like a tidal wave, an overwhelming force that beckoned and threatened to consume them all. Fear gripped David's chest like a vice. How far would he go to save Annie, and was there even a chance to confront the shadows and bring her back from whatever sinister grip held her? As the darkness enveloped the clearing, David felt the chilling realization seep into him: this was only the beginning. What would they have to face to reclaim their lost ones? And were they prepared for the demons lurking beneath the surface of their own minds? The darkness swallowed them whole, the gravity of its essence pulling them into an abyss of swirling terror. David's heart raced as it encroached, each familiar shadow morphing into grotesque figures of his worst fears. He could feel Jane's shaking breath beside him, a fragile reminder of the reality they clung to. Stick together! David shouted, but his own voice sounded distant and hollow in the thickening gloom. Panic began to grip him tightly as he tried to peer through the murky landscape. The forest they once knew now loomed like a haunting specter. "Where are you, Annie?" he called out, his desperation echoing back in the form of a sinister laugh that seemed to reverberate from the depths of the shadowy veil around him. Then, in the midst of the building dread, Emily's voice cut through, quaking with a blend of fear and anger. "We can't just stand here. We have to fight. Whatever it is, we need to show it we won." Back down. Her resolve ignited a spark within them all, but the cloaked figure watched them, its presence suffocating as if it thrived on their escalating emotions. "You dare attempt defiance in the face of fate?" it crooned, shadows whipping around it like a storm, feeding off their fear. "We have to," David shouted. "You said their essay cost, and we'll pay it. We're not afraid of the truth." The figure tilted its head, perhaps amused by their defiance, or maybe intrigued. "Ah, truth's so many layers, so many costs. What would you give? What soul would you sacrifice?" David's stomach tightened. The air shifted, swirling around them, thickening until he could hardly breathe. The shadows thrashed violently as if analyzing them, searching for their most vulnerable parts. What could he offer? His heart raced, flitting from Annie to Jane, to Emily. The thought of losing any of them plunged daggers into his resolve. "Let us go," Jane urged, taking a step forward, gathering her courage. "For Annie." The whispered names and memories began to rise, filling the air. Phantoms of long-gone faces rushed past them in a cacophony of silent pleas. David could see glimpses of himself within the darkness, wrapped in regrets, suffocated by choices from a past that weighed heavy. "Do you hear them?" he gasped, recognizing the cries of those who had tried and failed before them. "We have to save her, and ourselves." The shadows surged, threatening to swallow them whole, and just when despair began to settle within him, he felt the warmth of Emily's hand clasp his in fierce solidarity. "Together," she whispered, with grim determination. David pulled away from the void, inching closer, ready to confront the figure in front of them. "You want a sacrifice? Take my fear. Take my regret. The figure bowed slightly, darkness churning in response. An intriguing offer. But are you prepared to face the truth that accompanies such a sacrifice? A sudden bellow from the woods rattled through the clearing, shaking them to their core. It rose and fell in a haunting crescendo, the sound beckoning and horrifying, drumming against their ears. Annie! The scream echoed through the woodlands, filling the silence with a desperate urgency, stirring something deep within David. He had to act. We need to move. Who knows what beast lurks behind that veil of sorrow? With every ounce of strength left in him, David shouted into the dark, "We will find our truth. We will reclaim our lost." As the figure watched, its amusement shifted into something more sinister, its laughter warping into a harrowing multitude of tones. Then let the reckoning begin. The shadows will unveil, and not all will return. Darkness writhed and shifted, forming an entrance into the unknown. Breathless, heart-racing, they stepped forward together beyond the threshold, into the shadowy maw that awaited them. What horrors lay ahead? Would they be able to handle the truths waiting in the depths, or would the shadows consume their very souls? The air was thick with unease as they crossed into the darkness, each step a plunge deeper into an endless void. The shadows whispered and hissed, brushing against their skin like icy fingers. David could feel his heart hammering in his chest like a caged beast, wrestling with the terror that clawed at his insides. Am I losing my mind? David whispered, his voice nearly drowning in the oppressive silence. You're not, Emily murmured. Her grip on his hand tightened, a lifeline amid the chaos. We're in this together. Ahead, a sliver of pale light glimmered hope. Or a trap. With every instinct screaming for them to turn back, David led the way, fueled by the image of Annie trapped in that suffocating darkness. The scent of damp earth and rotting leaves filled his nostrils, reminding him of lost days, of joy drained to a bitter aftertaste. As they moved closer to the glimmer, echoes of laughter and sorrow intertwined in a dissonant symphony, pulling at the edges of their memory. It felt familiar, but also foreign, a manipulation of their deepest fears and regrets. Focus! Jane shouted, her voice cracking through the noise. We need to believe we can get her back. That has to be stronger than this madness. But the shadows writhed with delight, responding to her defiance with hissing whispers. You think you have the strength to battle the past? To face the truths that haunt you? From within the darkness emerged figures, flickering silhouettes of people they once knew. Faces distorted by sorrow and rage, they floated closer, eyes hollow like forgotten dreams. David's breath caught as he recognized one. Mom? The word escaped his lips before he could stop it. No, David. Emily pulled him back. It's not real. But the figure spoke with a voice like gravel, smooth and pitiless. What have you done to deserve her? You wanted freedom. And now it's time to face that consequence. The shadows surged forward, pulling at David's resolve. Each face carried memories of abandonment, isolation, and guilt. He felt the weight of their stares pressing down on him. Why do you hide from us? They taunted. Why not let it go? Embrace your pain. It is all that remains. In a sudden rage, David yelled back, I won't hide. I'll fight for the truth. I will not let you control me. With every word, the air thickened, clinging like a heavy fog. The figures recoiled, the shadows recoiling in tandem, leaving room for the light to grow stronger. But then the cloaked figure loomed above, a darkness among darkness, and laughed low in its throat, drowning out his words. Foolish child. Do you truly think you can command what lies in the depths? Your pain is a dagger, and it will cut you deep. What do we do? Jane whispered, panic flooding her voice. There's too many. Listen to the truths, Emily urged. Each one holds power. If we confront them, we can break through. With trembling hands, David reached out toward the light. He could feel Annie's presence, a beacon in the chaos. We will face it. He declared, finding strength amongst the fears that had haunted him. Pain surged through him, a visceral reminder that no one walks this earth untouched. As he approached the light, memories clawed back, desperate to consume him. But there was also the essence of triumph, the notion that pain could be transformed, turned from ashes into steel. Together, he heard Emily's whisper, pulling him back from the brink. For Annie. The cloaked figure seethed, its voice low and hissing. You're running toward the truth of the cruelest fate. Yet, with hearts ablaze, they stepped forward, ready to confront their deepest fears and unearth the light that waited on the other side. The shadows recoiled, but the intensity of their resolve ignited the darkness all around them. What awaited them next, revelation or destruction? Would the price they had to pay for freedom be too steep? They rushed toward the light, hands clasped tight, knowing one thing for certain: there was no retreat now. Suddenly, a piercing scream sliced through the air, and silence fell. David's breath froze. Was that Annie? Fear coiled around his heart once more. We have to hurry, he shouted, pushing forward into the heart of the uncertainty. The light flickered so brightly it nearly blinded them. David squinted, trying to grasp the shape that seemed to dance just beyond reach. Annie's voice echoed in his mind, a haunting melody threaded with desperation. A part of him felt her presence slipping further away. They had to reach her. Stay close, Emily urged, her determination a steady pulse beside him. They moved, pushing through the shifting shadows that swarmed around them like angry bees. But as they advanced, a familiar face burst from the dark, halting them. It was Annie, or at least the shade of her, pale and trembling as she stood caught between two worlds. David, she cried, her voice breaking like glass. Help me. Without thinking, David lunged forward. The shadows roared, their whispers growing chaotic. No. She is lost to you, they shrieked. Each word wrapped around him like chains, pulling him back into the void of despair. No, he shouted, fighting against the weight of their words. I won't give up on her. Annie's form shimmered, wavering like a mirage. You have to face it, she pleaded, her eyes filled with the darkness that clung to them. They'll overcome you if you don't. His heart ached at the sight, tears blurring his vision. He could almost feel her warmth, but the cold grasp of the shadows tugged at him, gnawing at his resolve. David, we can't let them take you. Emily pulled him back, her voice steady. What do you fear most? Jane's voice cut through the rising tumult, direct and sharp. That's what you need to face right now. The shadows stirred, pulling faces from the past. David was swept into a whirlwind of memories, every moment of weakness, every lie he told himself, all laid bare before him. An image of failure appeared, him sitting alone in his room, suffocated by loss. You're too weak to save anyone, the apparition spat, voice dripping with contempt. No. I'm not doing this, David roared. I've learned from every mistake. I can't look closer, Emily urged, and he turned back to Annie, her eyes wide with fear but steadfast. What do you see? The shadows writhed restlessly, coiling tighter. For a moment, David hesitated. But then, he took a deep breath, digging past the fear. There's more than this, he declared, suddenly aware of a truth rising like a tide. All this pain, it's just part of who I am. It doesn't define me. The shadows shrieked and drew back, their grip weakening. The pale light seemed to pulse, a beacon pulling him forward. Annie, David shouted, stretching out his hand. Take my hand. We can break this together. Her features shifted, hope warring with darkness. But I can't face them, David. The truth, my truth, it terrifies me. You don't have to pain alone, he yelled. His heart raced, aware that both she and the darkness were tied to each other. The fear is all they have left. You're stronger than this. Suddenly, a violent clash erupted as the cloaked figure stepped forward, wrapping itself in shadows, its voice booming. You think you can save her? You can only destroy yourselves. But David felt a fire surge within him. No. This is our choice. We face hurt to find our way. We will let it go. In that instant, everything changed. The air crackled as emanations of light exploded outward. In the chaos, David felt a rush of freedom. Annie grasped his hand, and the power surged between them like a lifeline, but just as they began to pull away from the grip of shadows, the cloaked figure screamed, a sound that split the air and rattled their bones. You'll pay the price for this defiance. This is just the beginning. With an unyielding strength, they surged forward together, the light enveloping them as they found courage they didn't know they possessed. But as they neared the edge of the darkness, the ground trembled. What if truth revealed was more than they were ready to face? Would the darkness retaliate even stronger? Would they be ready for what waited on the other side? And then, just as the light consumed them, everything went dark once more. The silence was suffocating. David felt the weight of darkness close in around him, a thick fog that made it hard to breathe. His heart raced, thudding against his ribs like a wild animal trapped in a cage. Where was Annie? Had they really broken free, or was this just another illusion swirling in the abyss? David, her voice was a whisper, barely a rustle of leaves on a still day. Panic shot through him as he spun around, trying to orient himself in this disorienting void. The shadows pulsed around him, oppressive and cold. Annie! Where are you? He called, desperation rising in his chest. A part of him feared what would happen if she was gone. Right here. She cried, her voice clearer now. Out of the darkness emerged a dim silhouette, and for a moment, he felt hope. He took a step forward, beckoning her with an outstretched hand. But as she drew nearer, her face, once filled with resolve, twisted into something more vulnerable. David, I see them. They're still here. Then she faltered, her form flickering as if caught in a fading film. The shadows reformed around them, weaving an intricate web of fear and anguish. Each tendril dripped with memories long buried, taunting him. Face your truth, David. Emily's voice echoed in his ears, a lifeline amidst the tempest. This isn't just about her. It's about you. You need to confront what you've been running from. In that moment, the shadows coalesced, forming images that sliced through the fog. Each one was a shadow of his past, a friend betrayed, a promise broken, moments of courage that turned to cowardice. David stumbled backward, pain clenching his throat like icy fingers. Look at them. The cloaked figure boomed from somewhere deep within the swirl of darkness. This is your legacy, David. Pain and failure. You think you can change? You'll always be haunted. No. He shouted, his voice rising to meet the challenge. I won't accept that. I am more than my mistakes. With each word, he felt a flicker of light in his chest, fighting against the shadow's cold grip. Annie reached out for him, and he could see it in her eyes, the same fire igniting within her. They were tethered together by something stronger than despair. Then we fight. Together. She declared, her hand stretching towards him as rays of warmth began to flow between them. He grasped her hand tightly, and the moment their fingers intertwined, a shock rippled through the darkness, bright beams shot out, pushing desperately against the shadows, as if they were trying to carve a path to salvation. But the cloaked figure laughed, a sound that rattled his very core. You think light can conquer darkness? It only inflames it. You must pay the toll. The ground bucked beneath them, a rumbling tremor that sent spikes of terror through David. What cost would they have to bear? The flickering light began to dim, and he realized they couldn't endure this battle forever. David, Annie's voice trembled, what do we do? He took a deep breath, heart pounding as he felt strength surging through him. We have to embrace the pain. Only then can we truly let it go. He could feel the darkness tightening again, sensing their hesitation. As he closed his eyes, he let the memories flood over him, the loneliness, the guilt, the fear. Each one clawed at him, but he stood firm. I am not weak. I am learning. I will not be defined by this. The shadows howled, the sound splitting the air like thunder, but David took Annie's face in his hands, grounding her. Feel it with me, Annie. Let it go. We are stronger than this. Then, as if summoned by their sheer will, light blazed. Waves of brilliance broke against the dark, illuminating everything it touched. David felt heavy chains fall away, the shadows recoiling as light filled the cracks in his soul, but the figure screamed again, its voice laced with rage. This isn't over. The darkness will return, and you'll be left with nothing. Just as the shadows began to swirl larger, tumultuous and fierce, David felt a surge in his heart. Were they truly ready for what was to come? Would they withstand the repercussions of this confrontation? Could they survive the reckoning that lay ahead? And then, darkness rippled once more, swallowing them whole, with the question echoing ominously in the void, what awaited them on the other side? In a heartbeat, the darkness morphed around David and Annie, enveloping them like a thick wool blanket. The light that had flickered from their intertwined hands struggled against the oppressive void, and just as quickly as it had come, it faded. There was a breathless pause that felt like standing at the edge of an abyss, the ground beneath them quaking as the shadows writhed. David opened his eyes, gasping. They were no longer in the same space. The cold was sharper now, biting at their skin. The silhouettes of tall trees loomed around them, twisted and gnarled, their bark dark and slick like wet cement. It felt like they had stepped into a nightmare birthed from their fears. David! Annie gasped, her voice trembling. What is happening? He looked around, dread pooling in his stomach. Panic flashed in Annie's eyes as she tugged at his arm, pulling him closer. We need to find a way out. We can't stay here. The wind howled, carrying whispers that slithered through the branches, each one tugging at the edges of his mind. You're not free. You've just begun to scratch the surface, a voice caressed him, echoing like a lullaby woven with temptation and threat. Don't listen. David snapped, shaking his head. It's just a trick. Focus. Just then, the forest parted before them, revealing a clearing illuminated by an eerie glow. In the center stood a small, crumbling tower coated in shadows, the cruel architecture sagging under the weight of unknown secrets. David's pulse quickened, he could feel something dark emanating from it, as if the tower itself was a black heart pulsating with malevolence. Annie, however, took a hesitant step forward. What if this is a way out? We have to check it out, don't we? David felt a chill grip him. Annie, wait. It might be a trap. But her resolve was stronger than the fear clenching his chest. He could see it in her determined gaze, the belief that this could lead them to freedom. Please, just stay close, he said, following her warily. As they approached, the shadows writhed more intensely, swirling with agonizing screams that scraped against their consciousness, sending a shiver down David's spine. Memories flashed through him, faces he had wronged, moments he'd rather forget. He staggered, grappling with the pain surfacing from within. Annie, we have to be careful. This, I can feel it. It wants to show us something. Fingers trembling, they reached the door of the tower. It creaked open, revealing a staircase spiraling down into darkness. The light from the clearing flickered behind them as the shadows stretched forward like hungry fingers. Together? Annie asked, uncertainty ghosting her features. David swallowed hard, the weight of the moment pressing down. He pulled her close, feeling the warmth of her body against the coldness looming ahead. Always. As they stepped inside, the door slammed shut behind them, thundering like the drum of an execution. David's heart raced as the darkness thickened around them, wrapping like a double-edged cloak. A low growl reverberated through the tower, and he knew they weren't alone. The deeper they descended, the colder it became. Wisps of regret drifted past, whispering his name like a haunting chorus. David clenched his fist, fighting against the memories that lurked in the shadows. "Annie, can you hear that?" he said, fear tightening in his throat. "What is happening?" She replied, her voice bordering on panic. A luminous orb flickered ahead of them, tauntingly waiting just out of reach. David instinctively stepped closer, the warmth of the light beckoning them forward. But as they lunged for it, the tower shuddered violently. "We must leave!" Annie screamed, desperation edging her voice as the walls trembled. Before David could respond, the darkness around them surged, and a voice sliced through the chaos. "You think you can escape your past? It has claimed you. Will you let your fear decide for you?" The ground beneath them cracked as a cold air swirled violently, drawing him closer to uncertainty. "David, we need to make a choice," Annie shouted, her fierce gaze locked onto his. "Do we confront this or run again?" Terror twisted in his gut. The weight of the decision hung heavy in the air, palpable and overwhelming. Could they unearth the truth waiting in the shadows, or would they become just another ghost drifting in this endless dark? With their hearts pounding, they stood at the precipice of their new fear. What awaited them in the heart of the tower? Would they find answers, or something more devastating? As the shadows loomed larger, they knew the truth was close. But would they have the courage to face it? The air thickened as David and Annie stood at the tower's center, pulse quickening with dread. With each breath, they sensed the shadows drawing closer, weaving around them like hungry serpents. The tower, a monstrous entity itself, loomed with secrets buried deep within its cold stone heart. It beckoned them. Would they choose to listen? Annie glanced up at him, her expression a mix of fear and fierce resolve. "We can't back down, David. We're here to confront the truth. We owe it to everyone who has vanished, to ourselves. We can't be haunted forever." David nodded, swallowing hard. Fear coiled in his gut, tightening with every heartbeat. He took a deep breath, clenching Annie's hand tightly. "You're right. No more running from the past. We face it together." Steps reverberated as they slowly moved toward the pulsating light at the tower's core. The whispers of old memories clawed at David, their spectral voices echoing in the confines of his mind, every mistake, every painful moment surfacing like ghosts seeking vengeance. The memories felt heavy, and he struggled to stay focused. Annie's presence was firm against the tide of darkness, her determination a handhold amidst the storm. Suddenly, the light flickered violently. David's heart stopped. The cloaked figure emerged from the threshold of darkness, more terrifying than before, its laughter filling the chasm of the tower. "You think you'll break through the chains of memories? They bind you tighter than any shackles. We will not be controlled by you," David shouted, his voice echoing off stone walls as he stepped forward, grounding himself in Annie's fierce resolve. "The past doesn't define us. We're here to reclaim our lives." The figure's laughter faded into a low growl, vibrating through the air as shadows surged forward, threatening to engulf them. David tightened his grip on Annie's hand, feeling the warmth radiate like a shield against the encroaching weight of despair. "Face your truth, David," Annie urged, her eyes wide, fierce strength flowing through her words. In that moment, he remembered every lie he had ever told himself, each moment of silence when he could have acted. The shadows lunged forward, nearly swallowing him whole. "I won't let fear chain me," he roared, recognizing the power hidden inside those memories, painful but essential to survival, transforming fear into fuel. "Let it come." As he spoke, the oppressive weight of the darkness shifted, creating an opening through which the light surged. Flames igniting inside him, he turned to Annie, who was watching him with wide, trusting eyes. "Together!" he shouted, charging into the dark. Annie followed, their united strength tearing through the clutches of the shadows. Light and dark wrestled around them, intertwining violently, creating a tempest of fear and release. The tower trembled, the stone walls howling, and David could feel the heartbeat of the structure, echoing in unison with their rising courage. The cloaked figure clawed at the remnants of their resolve, its voice a sinister whisper. You think you can have power over what was lost? They haunt you still, and you only serve to deepen the abyss. No! David yelled, loudly enough to collapse echoes. Our light defeats your darkness. We choose hope. We choose truth. Light surged from their entwined hands, breaking through the hallucinations curling at the edges of their minds. Annie's face was filled with determination. It's time for us to let go. With that declaration, the luminescence exploded outward, consuming the tower and disintegrating the shadows that had tormented them. As the last remnants of the figures faded into dust, the dense darkness cleared to reveal a vibrant landscape, a sun-drenched familiar field they once played in as children. A wave of relief washed over David as he saw them, all the hesitant souls that had left Crescent Hollow, now standing before him with acceptance and love in their eyes. Annie! He shouted, turning to her, overwhelmed with joy, but she was watching the past. Her eyes skimmed over the figures, whispering their names. Inseparable from the emotions that had bound them. A sense of regret passed through her. I won't forget. I can't, she whispered. I know, David replied, emotion thick in his throat. But we carry them with us now. Not as weight, but as strength. We won't bury our past, we'll honor it. Their eyes locked, a silent promise spoken between them. The sun continued to rise, illuminating the path ahead. Crescent Hollow was waiting, its secrets unveiled, its mysteries gradually dissolving. As they walked back into the light together, the shadows receded, knowing they could never conquer hearts forged through pain, courage, and love. We did it, Annie whispered, the warmth of the sun bathing their faces. We faced the darkness together. And just at that moment, laughter erupted from the other side of the field, familiar and sweet. The voices of those they fought to find echoed like a symphony of hope. David's heart soared. The bones of their town were not just remnants of a haunting nightmare, they were woven with protective histories. They could live in peace, at last free from the clutches of fear. They stepped forward, ready to embrace their future. And now, dear friends, this is your moment. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss our next exclusive tales. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Flood that comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild ride, and remember, this is the moment to share this video with at least 5 friends who also need to witness this incredible conclusion. Don't wait even one more second, let us keep this story alive together.